An email appeared in our inbox not long ago. The sender, Akupara Games. Yeah, that was the publisher that helped release the really cool and unique platformer Rain World, and the really cool and unique Souls-like Grime, and the really cool and unique dungeon crawler word game, Cryptmaster, which was one of our absolute favorite takes on the RPG to come out in years. So when I opened this email and saw that Repose, the newest game in the Akupara lineup, was going to be another grid-based black and white dungeon crawler with prominent horror vibes, the RPG centers of my brain began to crash against the walls in excited anticipation. But Repose was not what I expected. What I found instead was... So let's get this out of the way. Repose is a dungeon crawler, but it's not an RPG. It's something else entirely. It's a puzzle wrapped in a 1-bit color scheme, a tense exercise in resource management, and a step-by-step descent into the madness of the dead internet. As always, if you're interested in helping us dive through even more dangerous dungeons, we'll talk about some ways you can support our channel at the end of the video. But for now, let's heft that fire axe and hitch up our oxygen tanks as we find out why Repose made me hate hallways. My name is Boss Sauce.
We are the two-headed hero!
Repose opens to the sight of an astronaut getting pulled to pieces right in front of you. Oh. At least he leaves this handy light behind, which does you no favors when the mutant around the corner blasts you in the face with a rifle. Surprise! That was a dream. Cynthia from HR shakes you awake. You're in Cafe Void and you've fallen asleep during orientation day at your new job. What's the job? Descend into the megastructure below and collect oxygen tanks for your shadowy corporate overlords. Find out if there's anything of value remaining in the dead internet. And don't ask questions. So off you go to face the untold horrors of the deep for the promise of a meager paycheck. At least the company provides you with a few tools. There's a less than helpful map, which works about as well as a piece of graph paper since it doesn't show your position, a light stick, which looks suspiciously like the one dropped by the dead astronaut in your dream, and an axe. Just in case. Getting around in Repose works like a standard old-school dungeon crawler. Your new hire moves step by step along a grid-based map. If you played this kind of game before, the instinct to explore every little corner for loot and goodies quickly takes over, but this is exactly the wrong move to do, because every step you take costs precious energy. This makes the game feel extremely tense, since every move you make has to be made with careful precision. Wasteful moves run the risk of coming up short before you can get to the next objective. Which means you die. Your maximum energy cap changes from floor to floor, so survival means finding the next objective or save point in the fewest possible steps. At first I absolutely hated this, until I realized that Repose was not a dungeon crawler. Not really. Instead, it's a puzzle game where the goal is to somehow hold on to enough energy to scrape your way over to the next objective. It's more like a Sokoban, or a Chips Challenge, or something in the vein of an even older action puzzle game from the late 80s. Repose has no stats to speak of, no hit points, no character builds, and no inventory. At least, not really. Catching a single bullet or getting grabbed by one of the ghoulies will put you back at the last cozy cot that you stumbled over. You might think that this would make combat strategy feel extremely basic, and well, you'd be right. But there's still a good effort to include some thought here as well. You see, the axe has a wind-up time. If you step towards an enemy before fully raising the chopper, well, they're gonna get the best of you. But if you can manage to swing first, or better yet, sneak up behind them, things will go your way instead. Usually. If your timing's off, or if you hesitate, well, the monsters will just give your face some extra breathing holes and send you back to Sleepy Town. So quick reflexes and planning both come into play when facing down the game's hordes of tentacle monsters. On top of this, some of the enemies move erratically, or are even immune to the mighty edge of your trusty chopper. This is where the gun comes into play. This is your only ranged weapon, and it comes with a major drawback. It costs 5 of your precious energy pool to shoot it. But don't forget, using up all your energy also means dying, so it's often better to avoid using the gun whenever possible. Beds refill your energy and also act as a sort of save point, but even this is a little cumbersome since saving relies on an absolutely ancient password system. No save scumming here. But there are some fragments of code scattered around in notes and conversations that can take you to some interesting secret places. If you're lucky, you'll find the game's other secret weapon: tea. In Repose, tea is a superfood. You can carry around a thermos and have a nice refreshing tea party whenever your energy runs low. And when you finally taste that refreshing sip of leaf water, your brain gets enough of a caffeine boost to figure out where you are on the map for just a second. At first, tea seems like it would be a power-up to make the game easier, but more often than not, figuring out when and where to use the tea becomes part of the puzzle that each level presents. Basically, all of this results in a lot of cheap deaths and trial and error. You'll be constantly battling energy drain, gun-wielding horrors, and nasty surprises, choking the hallways with your corpses in order to make that perfect run to the next elevator or terminal and unlock the next section. You'll often find yourself marching down hallway after hallway, carefully peeking around each corner to try to figure out a way around or through the next challenge Repose throws your way. Every step could also be a wrong one. It could be the last morsel of energy wasted right before hitting your goal. So in this way, Repose becomes a tense, thoughtful exercise as you creep your way through the decaying tunnels and automobile wire harnesses of the down below. Bozo Attila Berthold is a name you probably haven't heard before, but he's the artist and solo dev behind the surreal cyberpunk landscapes in Repose. Much of Berthold's works can be found on his Instagram and his itch.io page, where he also has a second short adventure game called Out of the Blue available for free. With Repose, he leans into the same dithered 1-bit monochromatic art style that somewhat evokes old Macintosh adventure titles. It's hard to think of many modern examples that go anywhere near this. World of Horror tried something similar back in 2023, but with a decidedly Japanese horror bend to it. If you can think of any others, let me know down in the comments. But in contrast to World of Horror's eye-striking illustrations, the art of Repose feels more muted, grainy, and blocky, while still managing to capture the same high level of detail. Tiny motes of dust dance before your eyes. Ruined walls and tattered bookshelves whisper the tale of a long-abandoned city. Enemies and items are instantly readable, even with the limited sight range that the underground city allows. There's just something innately mysterious about this approach to visual design. I'm not sure if it's the lack of resolution that keeps tickling my imagination, or the oppressive nature of the negative space that this visual style leans on, but either way it adds a lot to the air of isolation and tension that the game cultivates. The soundscapes of Repose are a bit more muted for the most part. Most of the sounds you're going to hear emulate the crunchy PC speaker and MIDI effects of the early DOS era. Usually you'll only hear the shuffle of your own footsteps echoing in the darkness, the occasional friendly chirp of a terminal unlocking, and the unsettling hum of a ventilation fan in the background, punctuated only by the crack of a pistol and gory death of an enemy in your path. But the soundtrack truly shines with a standout creepiness, especially in the dead internet section. It's a shame that there's no way to individually adjust the music and ambience levels. It always seemed like the balance between them was a little bit off. After getting lost in the uncountable winding corridors for a while, you might start to wonder just why you're doing all of this. Unfortunately, Repose is heavier on questions than it is on answers. You only seem to have a couple real objectives. Collect oxygen tanks and make your way downwards. But this doesn't mean you'll be entirely alone. You'll meet a bunch of NPCs along the way, some helpful, others mysterious, that fill in small pieces of the storyline, but you'll never really feel like you're getting the entire picture. Not long after your journey begins, you'll run into Aaron, a co-worker that seems to be in much the same predicament that you are. Aaron is only revealed as an obscured, shadowy figure. He claims that he can speak to you only in your dreams, which already seems strange enough on its own. He also knows more about the city's horrific monsters than he lets on. "They're already inside you," he whispers as your hand appears to break apart and put itself back together somehow. Diving ever deeper toward the bottom of the ruins only gets weirder. Who is the employee of the year and why do they seem to know who you are? What are all these oxygen tanks for? Where do all these astronauts keep coming from and what happened to them? Will the same thing happen to you? There's only one place where you can find out. and it lies all the way at the bottom of the dead internet. Repose is a short and simple game that horror fans might love or absolutely hate. The frustrations of a trial-and-error gameplay loop might be a huge turnoff for some. The winding hallways often feel like navigating the same minefield over and over again, blowing your proverbial foot off countless times until you finally manage to nail down a perfect route and get rewarded with a few scraps of storyline or another mysterious cutscene. The loose approach to storytelling doles out enough grim imagery to hold the interest of horror fans without feeling like it lingers too long or info-dumping at any point. And the expertly crafted 1-bit style really stands out. Repose might be a short experience, only clocking in at a couple of hours, but the price is right if you want to pretend you're gaming like it's 1985 and get a little creeped out on a rainy Saturday afternoon. Just be warned, it might make you hate hallways. So, what do you think of the new wave of 80s and 90s influenced horror games? Let us know down in the comments below. And thanks for sticking around. As always, biggest thanks to all our tavern goers that dare to support our adventures over at the Heroes Table. We know that times are tough out there, so we've recently revamped the entire Patreon and YouTube membership reward tiers to include lower prices and more rewards. There's already a bunch of Patreon exclusive content for you to enjoy, including several discussion-style videos. And since YouTube has decided to make their site even more of an ad-filled corporate hellscape, there's now an ad-free tier that starts at just $1 a month. Let's hear it for our members at the Heroes Table, starting with Wolfgang Bristol, Adam Uselman, Jeduzable, Yaroslav Rybaki, Vulpes, Cameron Frement, Jim DiFrancesco, John Williams, Mirek Hotovi, San Lunette, Thorben Pelzer, and the rest. Supporting us directly is still the best way to make sure that we have the money and resources to keep these videos going, so please check it out. Or you can also subscribe to the channel, like and share the video, and tell us some funny astronaut jokes in the comments. You know, all the good algorithm stuff. So, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you on the next Two-Headed Hero.